Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Victoria Scott, and today I'm going to go through my week 3 mini cuts, check-in progress with you guys, and also sort of give you guys an update on how things have been going with my training and my general nutrition. So we're just going to dive right into it. Today is Tuesday. I typically do my check-in on Sunday, but it was kind of a busy weekend, a little unusual schedule for me, and I was also feeling really crappy, frankly. So just kind of held off and decided to do my check-in this morning. Lo and behold, yes, I was feeling crappy for about 3 days, and I woke up this morning and I actually hit my lowest weight since I started this mini cut. So I'll throw some photos up here for you guys to see my current physique update. Definitely feeling tighter overall, and my weight dropped this morning to 155.4, which is the lowest weights, I think, since last October, frankly. So, which is pretty cool. Now, what's really interesting, and I have my spreadsheet that I've shared with you guys already. If you watched the mini cut week 2 video, I showed you guys how I'm tracking my weight, my cardio, my training, and my general stats. So I track things like my soreness level, my digestion, my sleep from like a subjective perspective. So just how am I feeling? And I just kind of score myself. So last week, if you watched the previous video, I was in Dallas for an FMG fitness competition. We were in Dallas for 4 days, and we had some long days of travel. I did miss a couple of workouts as a result. So week 2, I only hit 4 training sessions. This past week, I only hit 4 training sessions. 4 is my minimum though. So the 5th day is sort of a full body day. I'd love to get that session in, but if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. I also had to shift my cardio sessions around a bit. So this past week, my weight coming back from the trip literally was like the same number every single day, which honestly is kind of rare. Just looking at my numbers here, is basically about 157.8 all week, last week. And I did train 4 days in a row and had cardio 5 days in a row. Typically, I would take like a day off every 2 or 3 days. But because of the travel schedule, I kind of crammed everything in towards the end of the week. Yeah, my weight just kind of stayed a little bit elevated. And by Sunday, I was useless. We even went, Sunday is typically a filming day for us, and we do film a lot of content on that day. But I was pretty much useless, and Brad and Coach Kelly filmed a bunch of content instead. And I kind of observed. So yesterday, I just did my walk, which I didn't do until 8 p.m., like 7:30, 8 o'clock last night. I almost skipped it. Honestly, I really didn't want to do it, but I was sitting there checking some messages, and I was like, you know what, I could check these messages and walk at least. And I had so much computer work yesterday that I think I got like 2,000 steps in for the whole day. So here we are, like 7:30, and I'm like, you know what, let me just go up and just do my walk. So I did my walk yesterday, got it done. I did not train yesterday. And then weight did drop. I mean, basically 3 pounds, right? So about 3 pounds since all of last week, basically. So now I think it'll probably bump up a little bit tomorrow. I don't think it's gonna stay there just yet, but it was nice to see that little drop. So because I was traveling, we didn't change my macros this week. I'm staying the same. My training day macros are still 165 protein, 190 carbs, 40 fats, and my off day macros, 165 protein, 170 carbs, and 35 fats. So for this week, my goal is to hit all 5 of my training sessions and to do my 5 cardio sessions. Now, what's really interesting is even though I've kept my nutrition the same, and I also want to caveat this with, I typically drop my calories pretty low when I start to cut. I don't typically diet on 1,700 calories. I don't. Especially as I'm getting leaner and leaner, it does take a little bit, for me, it takes to be a little bit more aggressive. But in tracking on my spreadsheet, I can see that my steps have increased significantly since the first week. So just my regular, just day-to-day steps started at about 42,000 steps a week. I went up to 49,000 steps week 2, and then this week, this past week, I was at 56,000 steps. So you can see I've sort of like increased gradually just my steps. And then I do track my time on the treadmill that I do my walk. I started at 30 minutes, I went to 35 minutes, and then now 40 minutes. And I am trying to push my intensity up just a little bit. So my average calorie burn per week has increased by about 110 calories overall extra for the week. So that's not a lot, but it's still an increase. And then same thing with my training. So my training was actually staying about the same week to week, but last week it did drop because I only did 4 training sessions. So my caloric burn during my training went down slightly. Frankly, I would have done a session on Sunday, a training session, but I was just feeling so crappy. So I decided to rest. No changes to the macros this week. I'm pretty happy with these photos. Frankly, I think that, if I'm able to just increase my activity in general, keep my training intensity high, keep my steps up, and just really be mindful of my steps. Looking at this is a great reference because it reminds me of just where I'm at and like the reality in numbers, right? And this is something that we do for our clients. We have multiple ways that we track their progress, whether it is their lifts, their cardio, calories, macros, whatever that is. I'm using this tool for myself it's a little bit more tedious because it's not an app. It's not like, what's it called? Like automated, like what I do with my clients. But I don't mind going in here and manually plugging the numbers in. So it's just like I don't know. I think I'm a little bit old school. When I first started, there were no apps or anything. So everything was just written down on paper. Or in like an email. So it's great now that we have these great apps that track things, that track numbers, that do all this stuff. But I think I have gotten used to just keeping a more manual log. So my tips for somebody who is, if you don't have a system of tracking, do not just go off the scale because the body is going to fluctuate a lot during the course of a dieting phase and even a build, or even in maintenance. And if you're not looking at these other numbers, you're going to be really influenced by your feelings. And if I feel fluffy today, or if I stepped on the scale and it made me feel not good. But the reality is when you look at your photos, when you look at, what is your activity? Did your activity increase, decrease? How is, I look at my hunger levels, my soreness levels, my digestion, my energy. I look at these things. How is my sleep? My sleep has actually improved the last few nights too. And to no surprise, you start to see the body move in the right direction when those numbers start to sync up. So it really does make a lot of sense when you're tracking all this stuff. Somebody did ask me, basically, I think the assumption is I'm perfect or I never deviate from my meal plan. And to that, I would say there's 2 things. Number one, there's a difference between a deviation in terms of overeating or undereating versus making a substitution. So say you have a 2,000 calorie diet and you're following a meal plan, and maybe that meal plan calls for oatmeal and some eggs, and you swapped out and had a croissant or something, and were able to match up the macros and the calories to stay within your calorie targets. That would be just fine for the most part. Food selection, I think, does still matter. Keeping your sugar levels down, keeping your fiber up, that matters. But these kind of substitutions, as long as it's still within your macros, should be fine. Now, there's a difference if you are making substitutions or adding things in and you're going over what your allotment is for what your goal is. That is eventually going to catch up to you. Like, you can have a little bit of a variance, maybe like a 10% variance in your macros, because the body's not fixed, right? If you don't have exactly 160 grams of protein, but you have 164, that's fine. I think people get a little bit too type A with those numbers. Think of it as more of a range, like with protein plus or minus 10 grams, with carbs plus or minus 10 grams, and with fats plus or minus 5 grams, because the caloric value of fats is much higher. So when you look at it as more of a range and you look at your calories as more of a range and you're sort of sitting in this range, you can establish consistency within a range versus having to hit a very specific number on points precisely. Unless you are following a meal plan like to a T, that will never happen. So if you're doing macros, you're gonna have some variance, and that's fine. As long as, if you decide, okay, I need to go into a deficit or I need to go into a build, as long as all of the numbers shift up or all of the numbers shift down. When somebody says to me like, oh, you probably don't have any BLTs, like no bites, licks, or taste, that actually is completely false. I do have things from time to time. And last week when I was traveling, for example, I had pasta, I had chicken parmesan one night when we had a group dinner. I did have pizza, and I had a little bit of alcohol. It's fine, I move on. And not everything was perfectly tracked. I was aware that could impact my results last week completely. So I think the biggest thing is to realize if you have some deviations, and if they're major deviations, to be real with yourself and understand that you might not see the progress you want to see. And what's important too with that is, at least for me, my goal was to at least maintain, right? I don't want to go backwards. I brought some MegaFit meals with me to the hotel. Most of my meals were my prepped meals that I ate, and I just stuck with that. And I was actually very happy with that because I didn't have to go hunt down food. I didn't have to spend extra money on food. And when I did go out to eat, that was my only real deviation. So my goal last week was really to just maintain, knowing that I might not see like perfect progress. Now, if I had several weeks like that, I would expect to not see any progress. And I think that's the biggest thing that people forget about is 1 week or 1 weekend where you just maintain is a drop in the bucket compared to months and months of doing the work. I think another thing that's maybe a little bit different for me than maybe a newer person starting their fitness journey is I've been doing this for a long time. And there were many years and periods of time when I followed a plan to a T, consistency, like almost obsessive, and got a result that, in my eyes, it's like looking at it like finances. When you invest into something, it starts to build and build and build, and on the backside of that, you have a lot more wiggle room because you've built this thing up to give you flexibility. And with fitness, it's very similar. You see the people who have been consistent for a very long time, and they've sort of put a lot into that health and fitness bucket, that health and fitness bank account, So that has a lot built into it. And when you have some deviations, you're not as impacted as somebody who has put this much into it and has a long way to go. So you got to invest a lot more before you withdraw a lot. So I think that's probably the best way to sort of look at it, is like how much flexibility does somebody have is probably relative to how much they've put into it over time. So for me, some deviations don't impact me as much as they might somebody else. That said, regardless of all of that, I think the important thing is to come back, when you get back home, to just get back on track. It was definitely a bumpy ride. So let's see, we got back on Monday. So Tuesday, Wednesday was kind of difficult for me, to be honest. Getting back into track, getting back into the gym, doing my cardio. I don't know, I think I was just feeling a little bit sluggish from the trip, and also a little bit energetically burnt out, because on a day-to-day basis, I work a lot. I'm around people for short periods of time, but not as much as I was that weekend. So there's a lot of energy output when you're around so many people, talking to so many people, having all these interactions for a whole day, day after day after day. And then also some like late nights. I think we had 2 nights that we were up until like 1 a.m. So that was not normal for me. So getting back last week was a bit rough. I only got 4 lifting sessions in, like I said. But I'm overall happy. Like, I think that I did the best that I could given the situation. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't, you know, I don't know. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't like a complete disaster. And I'm feeling really good this week. I think this is going to be a great week. I have in my mind of the training sessions that I've mapped out on the days I'm going to do them. And I'm going to keep my cardio roughly the same. I'm doing about 40 minutes now, 5 days a week. And yeah, so it's going pretty good overall. And I think that, you know, when you're looking at your progress, like I said before, it's not just about looking at the scale. The scale weight is just a fraction of the picture. You know, I even took my measurements this morning. My measurements on my waist and my hips are exactly the same as when I started, but I do feel like I look tighter and my weight is clearly down from when I started. My very, very first weigh-in when I started this mini cut was 161, but my waist and my hip measurements are the exact same as they were when I started. So where's the fat coming off of? Well, places that I don't measure. So a little bit probably in like the saddlebag area, a little bit maybe in the back of the arms, maybe under the bra area. And so I've had women say to me like, well, the scale's not changing, my measurements haven't changed, but I feel tighter, but I'm really upset. And you can look at their photos and see their body has changed, but they're really unhappy because the scale hasn't changed. And that's the thing is sometimes the scale isn't going to go in your favor. There's going to be water fluctuations. There's going to be a lot of things that are changing that aren't going to be visible for weeks, sometimes for some people months in terms of the scale. And unless you literally measure yourself head to toe, your measurements might not change very much. Especially like for me, like my waist is what it is. That's not where I hold a ton of body fat. My body fat holds primarily in my thighs and probably a little bit like kind of spread out in my upper body. So places that I don't measure. So I don't expect my waist and hip measurement to change. I am tracking it to see if there's a change, but I'm honestly not expecting a huge change. I think the only time my waist and hip changes is like 2 weeks before I hit the stage for competition. My waist will go down about 1 inch. And I think that's just because my food is low. So there's less in my digestive tract. And my hips might go down like 1/2 inch. So I don't carry a lot of fat in my glutes, and I don't see a huge fluctuation there. It's my thighs that will kind of expand and shrink. So every woman has a spot that is like a trouble spot, whether it's their arms, their waist, their glutes, or their legs. And so you have to remember that often will be the last place that you see fat come off. And the places that you measure might not be the exact places. We can't control that. So pictures, I think, are priceless because they will tell you the true story regardless of how you feel. It's really important to just rip the Band-Aid off, take the photos, take good photos too. Good lighting, you know, take some flexed, take some not flexed. Do all the angles, wear something where you can see your body. I see this a lot too. Women will take photos wearing like black leggings and like a black t-shirt or something. Take photos in a sports bra, something colored, shorts, something that's colored, or a bikini, so that you can see where changes are happening, and you'll be so happy that you have that. If you're not good at critiquing yourself and being sort of neutral, it is helpful to have a coach to look at your photos, compare, look at all of these other factors and see what's improved, what needs improvement, what needs to be changed. A lot of times having that guidance is the thing that people are missing because number one, we're our own worst critics. And number two, you don't know what you don't know. So you likely won't know what to change, when to change it, unless you have a lot of experience in this area. So it's helpful to have that as well. So this week I will be filming some more videos for you guys on training and also on my food. I did have a request for a day of eating, so I'll be including that, and also some more form videos because you guys have given me really good feedback on seeing some of my favorite exercises and how I perform them. So I'll include that this week. If you guys have any questions on nutrition, on fitness, anything in my check-in that you have questions on, go ahead and comment below. Let me know what you think. And also, if you are somebody who is looking for coaching and you want that guidance and support, and you're a woman in midlife who wants to lose body fat, tighten up, build some muscle tissue, I will put the link to our coaching program in the description, so you can click that link, see what's included, fill out an application, and book a call. You can speak with myself or one of the coaches on my team to see if it's a good fit and to get started. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this, and comment below. Let me know what you guys want to see next, and we'll see you next time.